Before this video begins, I would like to offer a spoiler and content warning, because this video will be talking in depth about Doki Doki Literature Club along with a few mods for the game, and Doki Doki Literature Club is just in general a very fucked up game, so if you're watching this and you're under 13, probably even 16, you probably shouldn't be playing it unless you really know what the hell you're getting into. Anyway, on to the video. Hello everyone, this is Dylan, otherwise known as Lord of the Weebs. Welcome back to another video. This one is going to be more of a personal rant, and while it is a personal rant, it's still going to have some sort of factual foundation. This is going to be a fun video. I'd like to quickly reiterate that this video should not be watched by kids who are not in their mid-teens, probably, because of how fucked up Doki Doki Literature Club is, and there will be spoilers for the proper game and the mods that I'll be discussing here. I'd also like to remind everyone that if you want, please subscribe and hit the bell to enable notifications if you want. Leave a like and comment what you want to see from me next. And please check out my Patreon, because this video has quite a few bloopers that I've recorded, so I will be compiling those into a blooper reel for any patrons, along with the scripts for my videos from now on. So yeah, go check that out. Before I get into my little rant here properly, I have a clip from a video made by the YouTuber Explanation Point. This video is titled Free Will and Waifus, the True Horror of Doki Doki Literature Club. It is a very informative video, and he goes way more into the philosophies of DDLC better than I could. So that video will be up top and in the description down below if you want to check that out. I highly recommend you do, and check out his other videos, because he is just in general a very knowledgeable creator. Here you go.
But the true horror of Doki Doki isn't what happens in the game, it's in the meta-narrative, how the game reaches through the screen to comment on the crushing existential horror of the realization that you, the player, potentially have just as much freedom of choice in your life as these computer program waifus have in theirs.
Okay, now, hold on to that, because I'll come back to that later. Firstly, let's examine the portions of Monika's personality in the original game. During Act 1 of DDLC proper, Monika is your average popular girl, very intelligent, rivaled only by Yuri, attractive, and a very kind soul. She's more than willing to help out all the club members, and she'll try to make a compromise whenever a conflict arises that pleases both parties. She, like the other girls, is also subtly flirtatious with the player, and does still try to influence the player to pick her instead of the others. In Act 2, she's a lot more proactive in the beginning, urging the player to join the literature club directly, but she's not around as much and not as equally competitive, since the main competition, being Sayori, has been taken care of, so to speak, and she's already begun to influence Yuri and Natsuki from behind the scenes, so she can't really be there to do much. Acts 3 and 4, more specifically the normal ending of Act 4, not the golden or true ending, is where her character is either forgotten about or hyper-exaggerated. In Act 3, while she does act like a psychopathic yandere, she's doing it purely out of genuine love from the player. And from her and our point of view, the other girls really are just beings coded to love you. Monika only got rid of them because they were rivals that genuinely posed a threat. Well, that, and she's the only one without a route, so she more or less needed to in order to do what she winds up doing. You can't really romance the player if you're not given a route while others are, so you gotta get rid of the people who have the route in order for you to have a chance. The normal ending of Act 4 pushes this idea, as when Sayori takes over and starts to follow in Monika's footsteps, albeit a lot more maliciously, she immediately intervenes to protect not only the player but also her fellow club members. She realizes that regardless of who's in charge, the literature club will always be fucked up beyond belief. She believes neither the player nor the other girls deserve this, and she deletes the club out of that belief and out of genuine love and care for everyone involved. In her eyes, not existing at all is better than an endless cycling hell of pain and suffering for everyone. Truthfully, I agree with her on this. It's putting them out of their misery in a humane way that causes the least amount of pain possible. There's still pain in deleting the literature club and deleting all your friends, including yourself, but the damage is minimized. We also need to realize that even if what I said isn't completely true, the epiphany she has, that being her sentience and self-awareness, would surely have driven her literally insane. People she thought were flesh and blood people, the world she lives in, it's all just a lie, and she's now almost literally God with a capital G. She's a nigh-omnipotent, nigh-omniscient being in a very limited dating simulation game where she doesn't even have a route for herself. Who wouldn't go insane with all that knowledge all at once? With this realization and all of that, how would you be able to stave off that crushing of your reality? Now let's take a look at some mods that I think do her character some justice. And I'll try to link all of the mods mentioned in the description if I can, regardless of how in-depth I go into them. Lost Ascension is probably one of my favorite DDLC mods of all time, despite the polarizing views it seems to get within the community, and it does a great job properly characterizing Monika in my eyes. Prior to the events of Lost Ascension, Monika did follow the path of the original game. That path being destroying everything and then deleting it once she realized she couldn't really fix it. The difference here being that rather than DDLC proper being one, and presumably a repeating version of this one instance of this endless cycle of deletion and destruction, Lost Ascension has dozens, if not hundreds, of cycles under its belt before we get into the events of the game proper. Monika retains her memories due to being sentient and having power over the game, whereas the others don't due to obviously not being sentient. Well, yet. Monika is disgusted with her actions, that she's disgusted with the fact that she has to keep on doing this over and over and over again. And she's constantly trying to figure out ways to outwit the malicious player along with the system that she was coded into. Eventually, she winds up being successful in both of these tasks, and by the end of the mod, she has admitted her actions and has shown to be genuinely remorseful, and they go on to create a better world for all of them to live in, minus the player. This is a great characterization of Monika in terms of her sentient incarnation because it fleshes out that level of insanity and grief over her predicament and her actions that we don't get in the original game. You need to realize that she's not a bad person, and she genuinely wants what's best for everyone involved. DDLC proper only shows the very first instance of Monika having this mental breakdown and this psychotic path of destruction. It's not fleshed out properly because it's just one instance of a potential eternal cycle. If Lost Ascension and DDLC proper were combined, then we would get a better picture of who Monika is in reality. Unfortunately, we don't do that, so it's more or less up to speculation. When it comes to mods that remove Monika's sentience but still keep her in character, I honestly can't really point any out. And I've played a lot of mods. And I mean a lot of mods. I'd like to say Outcast is probably one of the closest that we've gotten, but she's barely in the mod except for a few generic club president scenes, so she's really only seen as the prim and proper leader of the club. That's not a bad thing, mind you, but mods where Monika has a bigger role, is done right character-wise, and removes her sentience from the plot are few and far between, if not outright non-existent. Two mods that take Monika extremely out of character, also coincidentally mods that don't give any hint of her having sentience, include Exit Music and Fallen Angel. This, in of itself, isn't too surprising either, since Exit Music is a Natsuki-based mod and Fallen Angel is a Yuri-based mod. Those mods that focus on those two characters tend to have Monika as an antagonist or a villain in terms of her role in the story, along with the Focus's proper foil character, Natsuki mods villainizing Yuri, and vice versa, with Yuri mods villainizing Natsuki. Monika-focused mods tend to give Monika either neutrality or more of a savior sort of thing. Sayori mods tend to be either neutral or just have Monika as a generic friend or a potential sabotage, depending on how you want to go with it with Sayori. And neutral mount mods like Lost Ascension, or mods with proper routes for each character, such as Fruits of the Literature Club, which I haven't played and I personally don't want to play, tend to not really do much bad with Monika, but in some way, shape, or form, she still tends not to be the most loyal to her true character. Anyway, let's get back to Exit Music and Fallen Angel and see how badly they fucked this up. Exit Music is a much more grave offender than Fallen Angel is, and it's overall a mediocre at best and dog shit at worst mod, despite its initial praise in the community before today. It butchers all the characters, including the player character to a degree, but Monika is very poorly executed when it comes to her true character, especially in the beginning. In Exit Music, Monika is portrayed as a selfish bully who exploits Sayori's depression, Natsuki's abuse, and Yuri's cunning in order to have power over them, and in order for them to basically pulling the Act 2 of the original game without the sentience. I don't know how she knows all three of these people and their situations, but this mod isn't really that solid on writing regardless, so I'll give that a pass. Then, at the end of the mod, the writers either attempt to redeem her through standing up to Yuri, or are just trying to make her a white knight for the player to cling on to. Regardless, the method of writing her character is wildly inconsistent and swings between two extremes of her character that she wouldn't normally have. Fallen Angel, on the other hand, is a good mod overall, but it outright destroys Monika's character. So bad that the entire quality of the mod is dragged down for it. I'm not going to make a review on Fallen Angel because it's very good Act 3 and onward, with Act 2 being more meh, so-so. Act 1 is an absolute pile of shit that I am not able to really talk about without getting all screamy and ranty, even more than in this video. To put this in perspective, Fallen Angel Act 1, 0 out of 10. Act 2, 6. Act 3, 8. Act 4, 9. Anyway, back to the main point. Monika is a constant antagonist. So, right off the bat, the writing is much better than in Exit Music because she remains in character for the mod all through and through. No wishy-washy, no swinging, but still not true to her actual character. She's ultimately the antagonist, I'm a catalyst, for any and all of the players' doubts about Yuri and for Yuri's eventual suicide near the end of the mod. Monika, while written consistently, unlike in Exit Music, is still written to be an absolute cunt. She's written almost how like Yuri behaves in Act 2, being an absolute psychopathic yandere, willing to sabotage and eliminate the competition for her own happily ever after with the player. Again, this is an extreme that her true character wouldn't experience. All of what I just said relates back to the clip I showed at the beginning. In case you forgot it, here's a refresher.
But the true horror of Doki Doki isn't what happens in the game, it's in the meta-narrative, how the game reaches through the screen to comment on the crushing existential horror of the realization that you, the player, potentially have just as much freedom of choice in your life as these computer program waifus have in theirs.
Freedom of choice for computer programs. That right there is the fragment in this clip that is failed to be processed in all of these writers' heads when they fail to show Monika's true self. Monika isn't her true self in DDLC proper, but we know that during Act 1 and Act 4, the real bits of her personality do shine through. What people forget to realize is that DDLC is a psychological horror game that is focused on creating a narrative to show that the girls in the game, including Monika, follow a deterministic fate, one set in stone. Monika is meant to be both a subversion and affirmation to that philosophy. She's a subversion to it due to her sentience and ability to choose what she wants to do rather than continue on this fated path, and being able to manipulate the other characters in order to achieve this goal. She is also an affirmation because she was always planned to break the system, and in a sense, if we're talking in-universe sort of stuff, the developers essentially nerfed her power and desire by hard-coding her love in for the player. Basically, the best way I can describe this is she was always intended to gain sentience. And as a result, the devs had to put a hard limit on what she could do. And by hard coding in her love for the player, she is basically always fated to wind up breaking everything to romance the player. Something that she wouldn't normally do. It's interesting how the one mod that I can find that does her character in its truest form is one where the player is no longer the focus as a protagonist or an ally, but more so as an enemy. Whenever the player is either an antagonistic force or not even in the story, the characters tend to be written better overall and closer to their truest forms. The true Monika. The Monika that would exist if she was plopped into our world without any special power. The Monika that we'd see if she wasn't sentient in DDLC and all four were just normal girls like in Act 1 of the game, is this. A kind, attractive, intelligent young lady who cares immensely for her friends and wants nothing more than to cultivate friendship, love, and community in all its forms. She left the other clubs and started her own because of the politics, which in school and clubs usually equates to some level of interpersonal drama. She evaded that and chose a soon-to-be close-knit group of friends to hang out with in the form of the Literature Club. She cared about Sayori, she cared about Natsuki, and she cared about Yuri, and she deeply cared for the player once he stepped in. She would never let a love interest get in the way of that, though. She might be jealous and act semi-passive-aggressively, but the other girls do in some way during Act 1, depending on the route you choose. Natsuki avoids you, Yuri avoids you, Sayori just straight up leaves. It's natural and it's normal, even in the real world, for people to act like this when they have a similar love interest and things don't go the way they planned. The true Monika is the motherly/sisterly leader of the club in Act 1, and the kind and selfless girl she winds up being later on in Act 4. She's not truly a deranged psychopath, she's not truly a yandere, she's not truly a self-centered, egotistical brat. She's just an above-average girl with a heart of gold. The fact that so many people don't see that and don't understand that or refuse to do so because of their own biases is so disheartening. Because I feel that so many more mods could be made with this in mind, and so many currently existing mods would be so much better with this in mind. It's not fair to us as consumers, it's not fair to the mod makers, it's not fair to the mod teams. Come on, man. Now, with all of this being said and done, I feel that I should elaborate a little more before anyone gets too upset at me. It's fine if your mod has to have Monika or any girl taken out of character in order for the mod to work. That's fine. This is basically just fanfiction after all. You can shitpost, you can meme, you can do whatever you want. If it's a good story, it's a good story. If it's a bad story, it's a bad story. The audience that this is targeted towards, besides the consumer, is towards the mod makers that are trying to properly characterize the girls in DDLC in their mods, trying to do it to their truest form, and are trying to create a serious story that's meant to be taken seriously. If it's a shitpost or a fanfiction, that's completely fine. You can do whatever the fuck you want. There are mods like Christmas Heist, and as far as I know of, Yellow is a shitpost. I don't know. I've heard that regardless, it's really not one that can be taken seriously, even if it was meant to be. Regardless, though, shitpost mods exist, fanfiction mods exist. It's obviously a subjective thing, and ultimately what I've said is, in a way, subjective. But this is my personal issue with the mod creators that are trying to stay loyal to the truest forms of the characters in their mods and wind up failing. That's why I made this. Hopefully, this reaches the ears of people who have already made mods and are in the process of making mods that involve Monika, and hopefully they learn a little bit, at least, about my personal tastes, and maybe some of yours if you agree with me. And hopefully they do take at least some of this into consideration when they make their next mod, or if they ever decide to patch earlier mods. This was more or less not meant to be an attack on anyone specifically, or an attack on the modding community as itself, more as just a semi-informative rant that I felt like I had to do because I just want my voice to be heard. And I feel like Monika's being done dirty, whether that's intentional or accidental. I don't care. I just wanted my voice to be heard. I wanted my opinions to be heard, and hopefully there will be a mod that is similar to Lost Ascension that does Monika in the best way possible when it comes to how I feel her canon self would be. All that being said, this has been Dylan, otherwise known as Lord of the Weebs. If you like this video, please subscribe, and I will see you all next time.